Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks, Bucks, and Bytes podcast, your weekly dive into funding, market, and investor news in architecture, engineering, construction, and supply chain. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode.
Okay, good evening, gents. Just back to the likely crew this week. No guests.
Hey guys. Maybe before we start, can you explain why did you take on the white t-shirt?
Yeah, it's true. Do you want to actually know why? Because, okay, I'm sharing some personal, let's say nuance about myself. So when I go to my wardrobe every morning, I usually pick a black t-shirt because what annoys me about my white t-shirts is the more I wear them and the more they get washed, the less white they become. So I never wear them because they go every wash, it goes a little bit more darker because whatever, the white starts coming out. Whereas that problem doesn't happen with black as bad and it winds me up. So the question probably is why the hell do I have a white, why do I wear white t-shirts? I don't know.
You are excused.
Thank you.
Are you one of these people that is very meticulous about white sneakers?
No, he is not.
Actually, if you watch our Super Series, you will see that I wear the white trainers in every Super Series.
That's like posturing, and that's not how it is day to day. You bought them day before.
No, I actually have black trainers primarily.
There's a reason
and
why.
a traveling flower for your Super Series.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I actually bought one recently. All right, guys.
Okay,
let's
so we
move
try
in.
and add some value to the people that are spending their precious time listening to us. Or that maybe people enjoy the banter. We could just do a whole hour of that if you
I
want.
mean, if you now give recommendations what t-shirts to buy, it's a nice commercial episode.
Okay. So I get mine from. No, I'm just kidding. Shall we go for? Shall we go for the news? This is actually not this week. I think this was a couple of weeks ago, right? So this
9th of Feb.
This is about Saudi BRKZ, I guess pronounced bricks, who have closed a 17 million Series A for a construction tech platform. I think these was like a former executive at Uber, Kareem.
Yeah,
and I love this
so
story.
He started at Kareem and then went to Uber with the acquisition.
Okay, so just jumping ahead quickly, then I'll shut up and let you guys take stage. But I love this story. There's a quote there, and it says, "After Kareem's exit to Uber, I bought a family house in May 2020 and faced the inefficiencies of the construction supply chain, lack of visibility in material selection, uncertainty around the whereabouts of goods, and price volatility. The frustration made me realize how outdated the industry is and that it presented a huge opportunity worth exploring." How many times have you guys heard a similar story of founders creating a construction tech startup?
Yeah, and actually, when I read it, it resonated with. So we had a podcast with someone yesterday, $5 billion contractor, and he said that people doing great tech are from outside of construction, and it actually resonates perfectly. He was not in construction; he just saw a problem, how to solve similar problems somewhere else in the different industry, and got into it.
Hey man, I don't know if you missed the point. I think Patric got it, but
Why?
No, I was smiling because I was kind of expecting you would go there, Owen, and it is true. I think I've been hearing that a similar entry point from outside the industry into founding in the industry multiple times. So that is indeed funny. But I do think it's valid. It's valid because it is probably the touch point that you have as a person from outside of construction that touches you the most? Everybody is driving around streets and sees construction sites, but that's not a high touch point. It's just, okay, when you're driving in your car on the highway or the Autobahn and, it switches from 3 lanes to 1 lane, yeah, it touches us. It sucks. But it's not as high touch, as high intensity as actually building your building. So I do think it's a legit entry point. But you're right. It is one that we've heard.
I was going to say, Patric,
yeah, more than
how
once.
How many times have you heard that in a pitch?
Yeah, I couldn't count. But like I say, I think it is a valid one.
Yeah.
I think it's super valid because it's a real customer experience that takes them there. So like who is better? Obviously, mostly customers cannot spin the startup, right? But some of them can.
Helps if you're a previous executive from an Uber subsidiary too, I guess. So shall we talk about Brick?
Mm-hmm.
So marketplace for materials, right?
Yeah, in a way you could call them a cloud manufacturer, but you would have to look a little bit deeper if that is truly true, or if it's, a great managed marketplace.
Great managed marketplace.
Patric, could you just explain cloud manufacturer quickly, simply?
Okay, so managed marketplace would be a marketplace in which you're typically the supplier on record, and as such, you're taking the risk of actual delivery to the customer, which in the emerging markets is oftentimes the only thing how you can actually truly gain scale with building materials. If you don't guarantee the delivery, the quality, etc., you're not truly tackling it. So that's the managed marketplace. Cloud manufacturer goes a little bit different way. So the cloud manufacturer also has the supplier on record, but a cloud manufacturer is not about liquidity on the supply side. A cloud manufacturer is about supplier concentration and actually buying more and more capacity for better and better terms, and thus assuming an even higher risk than the managed marketplace. And that risk is, I guarantee the utilization of the factory. It's not on my balance sheet. I'm still asset light, but I do take the risk of high utilization, and in return, I get even better terms. Whereas a managed marketplace, the classic philosophy, and especially with someone that comes from a Careem or Uber background, would be to generate liquidity on the supply side, which is what Bricks claims to be doing.
So cloud manufacturer is like inframarket, is it?
Yeah, correct.
Got it. Well, what I loved, one of the sentences I loved when I read this announcement is, if materials are needed outside of Saudi, we will get them, white label these goods, and sell them to contractors, developers, and suppliers in Saudi. How beautiful and simple.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
Potentially, right? I mean, it's Saudi obviously on the demand side has a lot of ambition in terms of building scale and building at scale in a compressed timeline. So the bottlenecks might exist on the supply of materials, getting them on time, getting them on quality, etc., which is a great problem, one that we have found successes with in our portfolio across the emerging markets. And unfortunately, it's not exactly that ingredient that you can find in many Western markets, except for data centers, for example, or for grid reconstruction. But in traditional construction, you wouldn't have the same characteristics in many Western markets in the traditional infrastructure or even residential or commercial building, right? So that's cool. Now, that means that on the supply side, you need to find new supply pools oftentimes. And those supply pools could be domestic, meaning you have small manufacturers that are under-branded or underutilized. And for that reason, they don't have a seat at the table at the big projects because, they don't get discovered or they don't get trusted. Or cross-border supply that doesn't have a seat at the table within the domestic demand, because again, they might not be discovered, they might not speak the same language, they might not have certifications for the local market. So either way, whether it's domestic under-branded, underutilized supply or cross-border one, you could have an angle.
Mm-hmm. And the Western countries wouldn't have this edge because of like very well-developed competition and very well-developed market of supply chains?
So first of all, on the demand side, you want to find a category that you can grow very hard with, very fast with. And in the Western markets, data centers, grid reconstruction are two of those, but not every category would qualify on the demand side. On the supply side, yeah, in many of the Western markets, you would have more consolidated supply already. I will not give you the categories because I'm still looking into a cloud manufacturer for the Western markets. There are some very specific categories that are surprisingly deep and surprisingly hidden, where we have a similar manufacturing footprint in Europe as well as the US, where you have small or medium-sized manufacturers under-branded, underutilized, where you can still run cloud manufacturing businesses, but I will not tell them on air until I have made an investment there. And the other pocket that you can tap into that BRKZ is also discovering is the cross-border pocket. So you can actually bring, I have a company in my portfolio that does that. You can bring Eastern European and Asian supply into Western markets, and that way introduce a new pool of supply that previously was undiscovered and that wants a seat at that table. Both works.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Does this company can supply these materials on in like a volume or small quantities?
You have to do it at volume, otherwise it doesn't make sense. Because typically for the Western market, so for the
not Alibaba or Temu.
No, that would never work. For one, there's many reasons, but for one reason in particular, if you want to sell into the Western markets, you need certifications, product certifications.
Of course,
typically
Europe.
The foreign supplier, that's already where the problems start. The foreign supplier that is mid-size, under-branded, underutilized, doesn't have the overhead to deal with that, right? And so this is actually one of the things how you can inject as a cross-border cloud manufacturer value into that equation. I was also an angel in Prima, which does that, by the way, for it's like a Z-work for the Mexico to US border corridor. They do the same thing. So that is a playbook that generally has potential to work.
So is it not as simple as to search for cloud manufacturers of the future is to look at all of the countries in undeveloped countries in Africa, for example, and then see who can be a potentially a good candidate to become a market leader?
I don't feel qualified to speak about the African market. We would have to invite Shub. Shub covers Africa for us. So I'll let you shoot the breeze on this one, Martin, but I know when I don't know something, and that's one of them.
Okay. Let's have a look at some of the wording here, because maybe it'll give us some hints to how they are going about their strategy here. So BRKZ, I'm just looking at this statement here. It says BRKZ contractors and factories, on BRKZ, contractors and factories can procure essential building materials like cement, steel, and wood. So they're starting quite narrow by the sounds of things. Three main material. I don't know if that's actually
like infra market.
accurate. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if exactly.
I'm actually drawing comparisons from that.
Yeah.
They get transparent pricing, competitive quotes in 20 minutes, and buy now, pay later financing, while factories can source raw materials and expand their customer base. So a few things here. One, starting narrow. Two, buy now, pay later financing.
Mm-hmm.
What do we think about the narrow strategy to start with?
Are you sure it's actually that narrow? I think these are just examples. When you read later, it says how they have added more and more categories, I believe.
Okay.
I'm always reading headlines only.
I've been conned by
This is the book analogy I told you about. You don't like reading books, you just like reading headlines.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks here of 1,200 SKUs. Theoretically, they could be in these three categories, so it's not entire. It's a bit ambiguous. It could be that it's still only those three categories. I would not know that. However, the way the company has developed, it didn't start in this point, right? So we spoke to Ibrahim in 2022, had great discussions, high respect for him, and he's a founder that demonstrated good insight, good hunger. But he started in a different place. He originally started more between suppliers and retailers, hardware shops. And so judging by this release here, they went in a different direction. So I can't really tell you whether 1,200 SKUs are across the more than three categories. I would suspect they are. but I don't know that, just because to fill 1,200 SKUs with 3 categories can be done, but it wouldn't necessarily be how you optimize it, because typically you would go for the highest value SKUs, and at some point you just cut it off and you say, okay, let me handle a new category where I can add more high concentrated SKUs at first. So typically that wouldn't be the case, but I also cannot truly judge it here. And then what I found interesting was the 1,100 suppliers, because that is not the cloud manufacturing model. This is the model from someone that has found success with a managed marketplace, like I said in the beginning, and is trying to build liquidity into this. It wouldn't be my strategy, but I'm sure, they understand Saudi Arabia better than I do. There must be a reason for this.
So the reason you're saying, I guess you're also supporting what you said based on maybe InfoMarket or other examples. So the reason why would you not go into so many suppliers is to get better report and relationship with fewer and get better terms, perhaps?
Yeah. If you want to drive up utilization, and in return for those guarantees, you want to get great prices, then you need to consolidate supply.
Yeah.
And so that is something that if you spread demand across a large base of suppliers, you get other benefits. But rarely do you get the benefit of competitive pricing that drives down the price as much as you would in a cloud manufacturing model. I can speak from experience to that effect. But you have other, so you're less dependent, for example, on one factory having a water damage, like to give you a very vivid example, right? So that would be pretty damning in a cloud manufacturing model for a short amount of time. Whereas if you drive liquidity, that wouldn't even touch you.
Mm-hmm. But maybe you have so much influence in this one that you will not allow for the water leakage or damage. Otherwise.
The other thing I found interesting is that they said in this PR, hey, BRKZ has aggressively expanded into over 40 cities. So that's something I don't have a strong opinion on, but it does raise my question, hey, why 40 cities? What is it that you didn't find in the first 5 cities that made you feel compelled to go into 40? And there could be very good reasons for this. For example, it could be that our model is insanely replicable, and the markets are super homogeneous. And from the investor mind, when I see something like this, something that I ask myself is, okay, perhaps the first markets weren't necessarily as big as you thought. And that's why, in order to find the growth, you needed to expand relatively quickly. Again, this is something that if you come from a Uber or Careem marketplace type mindset, this is what they taught you, right? So they basically aggressive city by city land grab and staking claims, and not necessarily every city in the end has to be part of your IPO story. You can shut down cities if they didn't work out. So it could also be the growth model of claiming city by city and learning. It's not necessarily if you do it. And by the way, I'm not saying that's what BRKZ does. I'm just trying to contextualize what it could be. Yeah. If that's your strategy, it's not a very capital efficient or not the most capital efficient strategy,
Exactly.
but it's one where you can also make sure that you're owning these markets before anyone else does.
I was going to say very bluntly that the reason that they expanded with so many markets quickly is this. Raised 22.5 million, I think in 2 years, right? Since launching 2 years ago. Yeah, so I think that's the answer. They could afford.
I mean, it helps.
Yeah.
But also, it doesn't necessarily drive the strategy, because
Not most efficient
they
one.
could have spent that on other things, right?
So speaking of 22.5 million, including 5.5 million from pre-seed and seed rounds in 2 years. So it seems like quick or not really? What do you think from venture point of view?
Yeah, it's certainly on the quicker side.
On the quicker side. So here you go. There's a quick expansion perhaps. And
Yeah, you've got a founder that's like fairly decorated as well, right? And I'm guessing they are probably one of the first movers within this market. I don't know for certain.
in Saudi.
Yeah.
I do not know that.
Me either. Patrick?
I don't know.
Wonder the competition. One to look at. On the funding nuance here, they raised. So they raised not. Is this funding announced? Okay, 17 million. Let's break this down. So it said there's a paragraph at the top here that says the company has raised 9 million, 8 million in equity, and 1 million in debt.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's kind of strange.
So the way it worked, judging by the by the release here, and we haven't spoken to Ibrahim for this round. We only engaged on the very first round, and we really, really liked it. So I can only judge by what I'm seeing here is my point. The way it reads is that it was done in 2 tranches. So there was an original Series A, and then there was an extension to the Series A. And the original Series A was 8 million, and he now extended by another 9 million, which consisted of 8 in equity and 1 in debt. That's how I'm reading it.
Why would someone take debt? Would sell the debt for money instead of just equity?
Actually, in these models, it depends on how profitable the return on working capital is. In these models, very often you will find working capital injected into the supply chain in order to extract better prices from both suppliers and customers, thus increase your spread. And so if you do that in a hyper-profitable way, the contribution margin that you can generate on the working capital that you give, depending on what the contribution margin is and how long you give the working capital, 2 days, 20 days, 90 days. If you generate in excess of 25% of an annualized return, that's our internal benchmark, you want to throw working capital at it. And working capital, the cheapest that you can get is in the form of debt, not in the form of equity. So if that's the model that Ibrahim is running here, then that is, and with those returns on the contribution margin, then he only raises equity, I assume, in order to access more debt. That's what we are doing with our cloud manufacturers, and it's most capital efficient journey that you can have. I mean, our cloud manufacturers, just to give the Western audience an idea, Series B, C, D, E, F, we do for like 5% dilution. For Western founders, this is mind-blowing when they hear this, but that's because in these types of models where you have a highly profitable working capital engine, you can actually do it that way.
Mm-hmm. It's like 7 million of the debt, compared to sales volume. RFQ, sorry, this is a request for quotation, or from 770 million to last March to 350 million today. I guess this is per month. That would be crazy a lot, right?
It doesn't say, it leaves it ambiguous. And also the RFQ volume is typically not the metric that you use for managed marketplaces. So I found that interesting. So typically it's the GMV, the gross merchandise value, that you use. And the GMV is typically a number that if you're a managed marketplace and you are the supplier on record, or your cloud manufacturer and you're the supplier on record, then the GMV is actually your gross revenue, and it would actually flow through your P&L. So you guarantee it. You have a signed invoice for it. RFQ volume makes it sound a little bit like a step before that, right? So these are the quotes that we wrote, and a subset of that became the gross revenue. It's ambiguous, yeah. So just for context,
that's like how many.
I can only smile to that one.
It's like saying how many clicks you get on your LinkedIn post, maybe.
No, look, I mean, it is a leading indicator in a sense, because a percent of conversion from that will convert into your gross revenue. So he's, with his PR, we're not finding out what the conversion and the GMV is, but it is a leading indicator. I mean, if you write more quotes, in general, your GMV will go up unless your conversion rate completely plummets. Yeah, so that's obviously something we don't know in this case.
Mm-hmm. I was making a point of the 7 million in debt and compare it to this RFQ of, let's say, 350 million. 7 million is not much to cover.
I think it's 1 million in debt, or is it 7?
Oh,
it's
one. Oh,
yeah.
That's even like nothing, because you cannot cover any supplies.
Yes, but they're actually not covering that, are they? They're making money through the transaction fee as opposed to the material.
No, but Patric was saying that you get the debt financing to have a working capital, right?
In a cloud manufacturer and a managed marketplace for building materials, that's what you would do. I don't know if that's the case in Brick's case. I'm saying that could be a reason why you're raising debt, in order to inject working capital. Okay. And then depending on how long you hold the working capital, let's say it's 30 days, that means with 1 million of debt that you can use for working capital, you can turn that over 12 times per year, 30 days, 12 times per year, and that would allow you to drive 12 million of GMV.
This is a stupid question. Who usually gives a debt financing? Not venture investors.
No, there are very, very few venture investors that also have debt vehicles on the side, and that's a real competitive advantage, in my opinion, if you can do that. But there's only very, very few that have both. You will find venture debt providers. Venture debt is something that if you can avoid it, most founders want to avoid it. In models that are actually profitable and that have good investors with a solid track record in your model, you can actually get traditional debt. Traditional debt either from institutional investors or even from banks. We have both in our companies.
Okay.
Yeah, and they come with the least strings attached. Obviously, debt needs to be repaid, and debt can drive a company into insolvency. So that's something you need to be really, really careful about if you're an unprofitable managed marketplace to load up with debt. But if you're profitable and you control your growth against the debt that you own, so basically the principal that you have to repay, debt is a great part to add to your capital mix.
Okay. How is Saudi looking as an investment option, Patric, in terms of the
Maybe just
startup world?
in a second, this one. 4 times year-over-year revenue growth with positive unit economics. Is it good, bad, or?
For me, look, it's a singular metric that doesn't tell me anything about a company. Here we're being presented it in isolation, so I can only interpret it in isolation. In general, a 4x year over year will be considered positive. Very positive, I would say. But I'm not judging it in isolation because I have to see the capital efficiency next to it. How much did you spend in order to get there? For example, the dreaded burn multiple is one that I would look at here. What is the sales efficiency? Has it been going up? Has it been going down? Conversions. How are the customer cohorts? How are the supplier cohorts? I just cannot judge a company in isolation just by seeing that number. But in general, if the other numbers look good too, then this is a very good metric.
Yeah, especially when they received 22.5 million in 2 years. 4x year or over a year revenue growth can be very little, but can be decent.
Yeah, and I think the other side comment here at the very, very end of the sentence was positive unit economics. And so again, it's a little bit of an ambiguous term, but this one to me says, hey, our contribution margins after marketing and sales are positive. I'm interpreting because I'm not giving all the information here, but if that's what it is, that is indeed good, because many of and I think this is where Ibrahim originally said, if you, for example, build a managed marketplace between building materials manufacturers and hardware companies, many marketplaces that tried to do that over the years did not find positive contribution margins. You couldn't extract enough value on both sides. So the fact that he's speaking here about positive unit economics is actually, to me, one of the most important statements of this whole PR. Yeah. And I think it does come with the focus or the refocus of the company away from hardware shops or retail shops down to general contractors, because that model allows you much better margins.
Very good. Oh, any other question about
Saudi? Also, I saw Patric's face light up when I asked it, so I need to go back to that.
I'm not sure. You're asking the wrong person.
I thought you had other opinions.
Oh, sorry. What do we have? Shub?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, why do you have me, guys? I can tell you because Shub right now is not available.
I was just going to give him a quick call. It's phone a friend.
He's not very well.
No, he's not available.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't.
Okay,
we spoke to someone who has some experience, perhaps in Saudi, and he said that they should be doing more based on the position that they're in with construction innovation. But I didn't. Unfortunately, when he said it, we didn't get to explore why or why not. But
not everyone, but actually, lots of people we spoke with recently just got off the plane from Saudi, or at the airport flying from Saudi. So, so there's lots of startups going there and back in construction. So I guess going well.
Yeah. And they have Neon, which seems to gather a lot of attention. Are we done with
it? The region certainly has a lot of ambition. I think that is clear. And I think also optimism. And don't underestimate the value of optimism to generate dynamism, in the construction industry. I think that's very important. And that is something that I think the region is doing very well. And so that's why I think optimism is absolutely warranted about it.
Yeah,
now, UAE, not blind optimism.
Yeah. UAE having the largest annual sales of apartments and properties ever as well. So I guess the whole region is doing very well.
You're an investor down there, no?
No comment.
What are you trying to hide?
No comment.
Okay. I wanted to bring up something actually that came up in a conversation that I had with someone yesterday. This is moving away from bricks, by the way. So if you want to continue.
Sorry, just to leave that with a comment. I found this to be very positive news, just to see how they are focusing on general contractors, how they are focusing on the cross-border model. These are two ingredients in cloud manufacturers that we have found success with repeatedly, not just in one company, repeatedly. Many of them we haven't even spoken about. There are other ingredients here that, I think are their own avatar, and maybe that fits better in the Saudi market. When we spoke to Ibrahim, we were very impressed. Again, this is 3 years ago. But, wishing him a lot of success, because, I think they have a terrific team and interesting market. And then the model has been one that has been pioneered before. So I think it does work if you find the right mix of ingredients for your market.
But will I put words in your mouth if I say that you guys didn't invest because it's a too small market?
No, that was not the reason. We discussed terms with Ibrahim, and in the end, it just didn't work out for our fund economics. But we could have seen us partnering.
Okay.
Very good. I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday, and they told me that, so they're a contractor of they're an innovation officer of a large contractor in the US, and they were telling me that they were working with a startup, and the startup had subscribed to their startup's product, and they had asked for a few changes to be made to the product, some feature requests, and the startup went away, made the changes, and came back, and then gave this individual a bill to pay. Have you guys ever heard of something similar?
So hold on, I want to get this right. So
the context was slightly different, I think. He said that this could work for us if this, and that would be different. Yeah. And then they came back with these features changed, and then asked for the bill.
Thanks for clarifying.
I need more information about the context, though. Are we saying this person and his organization was already a customer of the startup, or was not yet a customer?
Before piloting.
Okay, that's where I got wrong then. Not a customer.
Not a
So
customer.
they were not a customer.
No.
Okay.
So there was a very early stage startup without they didn't sign up any subscription with the incumbent, and they were trying to refine the product probably. There was no contract.
Okay, got it. And he was giving them advice, basically saying, hey, right now I don't want to buy it, but if you add something, then it could work for me and I might buy it. So that's what he said, right? And so they came back. And sorry, what exactly did they do? Because it sounds like, hey, they sent me a bill for this. But I mean, if they weren't an existing client,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's the story.
We don't know the details of this, but I think it just have you come across with similar.
It's like
behaviors.
when you go to like a holiday destination and you're just sitting there having a nice drink or something, and someone comes and takes a photograph of you, and it says they want like $10 or whatever.
Maybe. So, okay. Obviously, we don't know exactly how it went down. So let's try to maybe use whatever scenarios here, and whichever it was, I think you can come to a slightly different conclusion. So,
yes.
Scenario 1, they quoted him one price before the features he didn't buy. They came back 3 months later with the features, and they quoted him a higher price. He hadn't paid before. Okay, so that's Scenario 1. Honestly, I can find no fault in this. Sorry, if I make my product better, it should also be more valuable to you. And so since you haven't committed anything to me other than just tell me what is missing in order to purchase my product as your supplier, as your business partner, and now I'm delivering this to you, sorry, why do you feel aggravated? So if that was the scenario, I would not understand what is so aggravating about it. To me, that if that's how it went down, to me, that's how business is being done all over the world, and that's completely justified. Now, the other side of the story, which it wasn't in this case, but I still want to mention it. If you're an existing customer, we're business partners, and you tell me how to improve my product. You were one of the first people to believe in my company. Even that doesn't matter. You're a person that believes in my company, that believes in my product. You're gracious enough to give me your time, give me your information, and then I come 3 months later and raise the prices on the information that you gave me on an existing business partner. I would kick you out the door. That would be absolutely abhorrent transactional behavior I would not want to tolerate in a business partner. I think that and that is not what it sounds like. So that doesn't sound to be what went down here. Yeah, but if it were, like, I would be understanding of any customer that would feel a little bit, what the fuck. Maybe there's a scenario in the middle. Maybe the scenario in the middle is, hey, I'm not a customer yet. You quoted me. You made me invest time in you. You took workshops with me. You took workshops with my organization. And then when my organization invested that time, 3 months later, you have these features and now you're quoting me a higher price, or you're quoting me the same price plus an implementation fee. Then I would also say, hey, what the fuck? We invested also, it's not truly sweat equity, but we invested here also in helping you guys get off the ground, go to another customer and charge them more. But why do you do me wrong here? So for me, that would also, it would be, I think, for both sides understandable. Personally, in that scenario, if I was the supplier, I would not play it that way. I would stick to the original price, say thank you, let's build a long-term relationship, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting having a small business background and listening to stories from venture capital or startup world. How, in my view, detached some of these cases, detached from reality, some of these cases are.
If you treat everything as a one-off transaction, then the whole world becomes very simple and relationships become really meaningless. It's not how I like to do business. It's not how construction does business. But, maybe it works for some people.
Okay, how about this one then? So this is a thought that I had earlier. So we've been speaking to... So like technology that gets created for general contractors. General contractors usually say they pick the technology because it fits nicely into their workflows. However, each general contractor's workflow tends to be slightly different, right? So what you'll find is that a lot of startups actually have to build a kind of custom solution to their customer to fit within their precise workflow. So how does that enable scale across technology companies if each of their potential customers have a unique aspect to their workflow that they have to cater for? Because
I can't
the general contractor told me that they wouldn't use big tech within the AEC world because of that, because the software is too rigid and doesn't work for them.
Yeah. And if you start speaking about integrations into their workflows, that means dollars, lots of dollars. That's what they say. So it becomes very expensive, and then probably the cost benefit is disappearing of using any technology versus the current way of doing things. Any thoughts from?
My thought is I share the observation, but I refuse to give my thoughts because I have made an investment in a company that tries to scale with exactly that opportunity, and I don't want to give away their playbook.
Interesting. So our speaker, let's call him, we spoke with yesterday, said that there are technologies which are actually integrating existing workflows with like startups. Let's say, yeah. Okay.
Absolutely, and I think it becomes even worse when.
So why don't you take the other side then? If you invested, then it must be positive.
The other side being?
So I think me and Owen, we can't understand the logic of it. So my personal view is that if you can't connect fairly seamlessly to your potential customer, probably the tech you are trying to sell.
You're more of a service business, right? That just has tech associated to it.
Yeah, or you're a software business that doesn't scale.
Yeah, so you're probably not providing good tech solution, and you're calling yourself startup. So if you invested in a company which helps facilitate that, you must have the positive side. You must see the positive side of it. I'm pulling your leg.
I see that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is a very repeatable and very first principle opportunity across general contractors, across all subsegments, across all geographies. And on top of it comes actually a software fatigue, where you will find general contractors today that tell you, I'm not buying more software until I have reduced complexity, until I have integrated better, until I have changed my stack over, made my data harmonize, made my data talk to each other, make it flow, etc. That's a huge opportunity if that's the moment in the market that you're catching. But I'm not sharing the playbook. Sorry, Martin. That's
Okay.
And by the way, I don't even know if it works. So I'm not claiming I have found the wisdom of the fountain of truth or whatever. That's not what I'm claiming. I'm claiming, hey, I wouldn't do right by my company that is in stealth mode, that is attacking that opportunity with their own ingredient, and I don't want to spill the beans on that one. So that's just not my place to do that. But I believe very much in that opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. When do you think you will be able to share some nuggets?
Tomorrow.
Look, we published. I mean, we announced today a Series B round of a company I invested 3 years ago in. So that gives you a timeline. I could stay under the radar a long time.
Is
Oh,
this
that's
because the PR team was so slow?
Yeah, I'm big on PR, man. I really love it.
I think that maybe there's a company in San Francisco called Agave. Maybe you guys have heard of.
I've heard.
Yeah, which maybe tackles this solution.
Which is?
They have I just have it here, whereby they have a API which can connect the various different softwares so they can all communicate with each other, as opposed to.
So Sector does something like that in a consultancy kind of way, right?
Interesting.
Perhaps.
Okay.
Okay. Have you got any stories, Martin? We have a few minutes.
Not really.
Patrick?
I'm not really a story person. Do you have stories?
Yeah.
I actually went on a podcast this week. Which
Oh, wow.
was,
Where did you go?
Look at you.
Which is
Where did
like
you go? Joe or Alec? Oh no, what's the other?
Oh yeah. Yeah, super famous one. Lex Friedman,
Lex Friedman.
3.5
Nice.
hours.
How was it?
3.5 hours talk about construction technology. I'm sure it will get tons of views.
Okay, so who is it?
No, it was Project Flux, they're called. James, he's the head of data for Leeds, which is a construction consultancy. No, I mean, it was just strange being on the other side of the microphone. It's almost offensive when people are asking me questions as opposed to the other way around, right?
It feels different, does it?
But then there is also this kind of ego-inflating thing where when people start asking questions about you, how much you can talk about yourself and how much you enjoy it after as well.
Did you enjoy?
Oh, yeah?
Did you enjoy?
Yeah. Loved it. I actually have another one tomorrow.
Oh wow!
By the way,
Becoming a star.
this is not part of a new strategy or anything like that. It's just coincidental.
Very good.
Maybe we're making it
Nice.
big time at last, Martin.
So you guys have any US travel coming up, doing more documentaries?
We do have
Yeah.
from
Or
Belarus,
international travel? Doesn't have
from
to be US.
Belarus through Germany to New York, maybe San Francisco.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Keeping busy.
Martin's headed to Belarus.
Yeah,
Nice. Martin, hide your Polish passport if you want to get out.
I actually got the British passport last week.
Yeah, use that one, man.
Bye.
Use that one.
Bye.
And maybe change the last name to Smith or something.
Or Hellerman.
Yes.
What?